She disappeared, without opening the door. No footsteps in the hallway. No camera footage. No noise, just silence. And the scariest part? The truth was never outside that room. It was hiding inside it the whole time. So here's the question that still doesn't leave people alone. How can someone vanish on a cruise ship and never actually leave? The final night always feels different. On the Carnival Horizon cruise ship, people were stretching time, staying up later, trying to hold on to the last moments of vacation. Music carried through the decks. Elevators moved constantly. Doors opened and closed. Laughter echoed in narrow corridors. Everything felt alive, normal, safe. Exactly the kind of place where nothing is supposed to go wrong. Inside one of those cabins, 18-year-old Anna, Kepner was supposed to be ending her night like everyone else, resting. Maybe scrolling through her phone, maybe packing for the morning. She had no reason to feel unsafe. She was with family, in a controlled environment, surrounded by people, but by morning, she was gone. At first it didn't feel like danger, just confusion. Maybe she woke up early, maybe she went to get breakfast, maybe she stepped out for air, but minutes turned into hours and something didn't sit right. Anna wasn't the type to disappear without saying anything. She kept people updated. She followed plans. She stayed connected. So when she didn't respond, that silence became louder than anything else on the ship. And here's where the story starts to split into two realities. The one everyone believed, and the one that was actually true. The believed version was simple. Anna was missing. Somewhere on a massive cruise ship, an 18-year-old girl had disappeared. People started asking questions. Crew members were notified. Quiet searches began. Cameras were likely reviewed. Movements checked. The assumption? She must have left the cabin at some point. But there was a problem. No one saw her leave. No footage confirmed it. No clear timeline existed after a certain point in the night. That's when the situation shifted from confusion to fear. Because if she didn't leave the room, then what happened inside it? Anna Kepner wasn't someone who lived unpredictably. She came from Florida, known as a disciplined, social, and active teenager. She balanced school life with extracurriculars, including cheerleading. Friends described her as reliable, someone who showed up, who answered messages, who didn't disappear into silence. Family described her as close, present, and grounded. This trip wasn't unusual. It was a family vacation, planned, structured, safe, which makes what happened even harder to process. Sometime during that final night, something changed inside that cabin. No alarms, no calls for help. No one in nearby rooms reported hearing anything unusual. That detail matters because it suggests control, silence, proximity. This wasn't chaotic. It was contained. According to investigators, the cause of death was mechanical asphyxiation, suffocation, a method that doesn't echo through walls, a method that requires closeness, time, intent. And after that moment came a decision that defines the entire case. Not panic, not confession, concealment. Her body was wrapped in bedding, positioned carefully, then placed under the bed, a space not meant to be noticed unless someone is specifically looking. On top of that, items were placed to make everything seem undisturbed. Life vests, cabin materials, layers designed to delay discovery. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, and for hours it worked. Morning came. Passengers moved through routines. Breakfast lines formed. Luggage was prepared. Announcements played over speakers. The ship continued its journey like nothing had happened, all while a body remained hidden just feet away from where people walked. That contrast is what makes this case unsettling, because reality and perception existed side by side, and no one noticed. Eventually, concern became urgency. Anna wasn't responding. She wasn't seen. She wasn't anywhere she was supposed to be. The situation escalated. Crew members entered the cabin. At first glance, nothing screamed danger, but something felt off. The bed didn't look right. Objects weren't placed naturally. There was a stillness and a kind of absence that experienced staff recognize. And then they looked deeper. Under the bed, that's where everything changed. Anna Kepner hadn't vanished. She had been hidden. That moment flipped the entire narrative. This was no longer a search. It was a homicide investigation.
The ship transformed instantly. Security tightened. Movement became restricted. Investigators began isolating timelines, identifying last contacts, reconstructing the final hours. And one detail became impossible to ignore. She had not been alone that night. Attention shifted to someone who didn't need access, someone who already had it, her 16-year-old stepbrother. At first, it felt difficult to accept. Cases like this often point outward. Strangers, unknown threats, external risks. But this wasn't external. This was internal. He shared space with her. Proximity wasn't a question. Opportunity wasn't a challenge. It already existed. Investigators focused in, questioning, observing, comparing statements against physical evidence. And slowly, a darker picture started forming. There were signs, subtle, scattered, but real. Reports suggested he had shown an unusual level of attention toward Anna before. Not always obvious, not always alarming on its own. But when placed together, those moments started to form a pattern that hadn't been fully addressed. Until now, he was taken into custody, and then came a decision that changed the entire legal path of the case. Despite being 16, he would be charged as an adult. That meant this wasn't being treated as a juvenile mistake. It was being treated as a calculated, serious crime, murder, with additional allegations of sexual assault. As investigators continued, more details surfaced. One of the most discussed was his mental state. Reports indicated he had been prescribed medication, possibly for behavioral or psychological reasons, and had not been consistently taking it during the trip.
That detail raised questions. Could this have been prevented? Were there warning signs before the cruise? Did anyone notice changes in behavior? But those questions exist after the fact, and they don't change what happened inside that room. Here's where the case takes another turn, not in facts, but in understanding. A cruise ship is one of the most controlled environments possible. Cameras monitor movement, staff are trained, access points are limited. There's no easy way to disappear, and yet, for a period of time, the truth stayed hidden. Not because it was far away, but because no one expected it to be so close. That's the twist. Everyone was looking outward, when the answer was underneath. Literally, when the ship returned to port, authorities took over. Evidence collected from the cabin became central. Positioning, materials, forensic traces. Statements were aligned against timelines. Digital data likely supported movement patterns and interactions. The suspect entered the legal system. He pleaded not guilty, and the case moved forward into adult court. If convicted, the consequences are severe, potentially life imprisonment. For the family, the situation is beyond legal outcomes. It's personal, devastating. Reports indicate they have struggled with the idea of reliving the details during trial, choosing distance over exposure. And that leads to the final layer of this story. Because this isn't just about what happened. It's about how it happened. In a place designed for safety. In a room meant for rest. Between people who were supposed to trust each other. Anna Kepner didn't disappear into the ocean. She didn't leave the ship. She didn't walk out of that door. She never left the cabin. And the person responsible was never searching, never chasing, never hiding somewhere far away. He was already there, inside the room, inside the situation, inside the trust that no one thought to question. And that's the part that stays with you. Because it forces a realization most people try to avoid. Sometimes the danger isn't outside. Sometimes it doesn't break in. Sometimes it's already inside, and by the time anyone notices, it's too late.